Hi there, everyone, and welcome to this small session on Azure Synapse, Power BI, and Purview, and why I think that this combination of services makes a very strong play in the analytical market. So my name is Johan Ludvig. I'm a principal solution architect at Capgemini. I'm doing a lot of different stuff. You can also get these slides later on, so you can contact me on Twitter, on LinkedIn, or email me. Before we start diving deeper into this, I wanted to set the scene a bit, in that we are talking about the history of analytical querying. And in this history, we have the data warehouse as the first part. It has been around since around about 1988. It has evolved over time. And today we have, of course, data warehouses in lots of different shapes and sizes. And the main three approaches that you will find are the dimensional approach, which is Kimball, the normalized approach, which is Inman, and then the data vault. And of course, a lot of people mix and match these together to find a better fit for themselves. The data warehouse is an enterprise-wide reporting and functionality. So it is very focused on high data quality and exact numbers, because you are reporting at the CXO level and downwards on how the business is doing. How have we been doing the last month since comparing to last year or something? So you really have to be sure that you have high data quality and high focus on the numbers. That, of course, leads to long development cycles. So data warehousing has a bad reputation for being expensive, big projects that takes lots of time, customers getting their reports after they've forgotten what they asked for. At the same time, as the advent of big data came in, the relational database engines started struggling with the amount of data that came in, the variety of data, and the speed it came in. And that, of course, got things going slower and slower and slower, and people started looking for other solutions. But the strength of the data warehouse is that it tells you quite good, how are we doing? And it is very good at enterprise-wide reporting, so cross-domain querying, querying across different database systems or relational systems or what have you. Then you have the data lake, and the data lake has been around since 2011, roundabouts. And the data lake tried to answer the pains of the enterprise data warehouse by looking at the 3 V's or 5 or 6 or whatever, depending on the marketing system you talk about, but at least volume, variety, and velocity of the big data problem. And data lakes come in the different sizes and shapes, but the typical variants are either just the pure data lake, so raw data lake, where you put everything just into one big bucket, or you have the business data lake or the layered lake, and there's no standardization across these. For some reason, I'm using an old slide set, I see, but okay. So the transformation happens in the upper layers of the lake. There's no normalization between the source systems. And the layer data lakes give different user groups different access in layers. So typically you want to have data scientists, data engineers accessing the raw layers, whereas analytical, so business analysts might access to a more normalized layer or a data warehousing kind of solution. And then again, you take on parts of the data warehousing problems when you start diving into these layers. But data lakes are great enablers of data science and self-service. The problem, of course, is that you have a problem of too much data being pulled in, and there is also a challenge of changing or adding new disks or adding new compute nodes into a data lake on-prem. That has been partially solved in the cloud. But it's a great solution for trend analysis or ad hoc analysis. And it has, because it doesn't have to focus on data quality or normalizing across different systems, there is a very short time to market development cycle. Then in between here, we have gotten some more advanced systems. We've gotten different solutions trying to answer and join the different combinations of analytical querying together. Because, as I mentioned, when you're starting to build more and more advanced or more and more normalized data sets for analysts to work with, you start taking on the form and shape of the data warehouse. So, and lots of people have already, or businesses have already put a lot of money and effort into their data warehousing system. So why should they just throw that out of the window to start anew? But they need to evolve to answer these pains. So the modern landscape is a bit more complex than it was just 10 years ago. You have different users needing different answers, so you can either combine these and query against the GraphQL endpoint, SQL endpoint. You can do Spark analysis. And this means that you have to have a whole different set of scenarios or systems to work with to enable all of these. Capgemini has its own modern landscape or reference architecture. The first one we saw was from Gartner. And this is also trying to, again, allow you, okay, there's a lot of boxes here, but it tries to pinpoint different assets or different functionality that you might need in a platform, depending on your company. And then you can check off these boxes to see, okay, if I need to have a data warehouse, well, I need to have a data ingestion, I need to have somewhere to store that data, I need to transform and enrich it, and then I need to do data modeling and aggregate the facts. So I move across the different boxes in the middle here to find all the different services and capabilities that I need to fill in. But of course, underneath there, you need to have a solid foundation. So you need to have the infrastructure in place, network connectivity, security and governance. Probably or preferably, you will also have some DevOps and DataOps automation in this. And you want to have some data governance, because if you have data but nobody knows where to find it, it's just a cost center. It just costs you money. You can't use it. And of course, you need to make sure that your users can find and understand the different KPIs or the meanings of words. You need to have a business glossary as well as a data catalog. You probably want your users also to profile and test what data is there and what they can trust. Okay, can I use this data set for data warehousing reporting, or is it just a so mixed data quality on it, so I can use it for trend analysis, but I can't really use it for anything else? So these kind of things all are mixed together capabilities that you need to think about to build a modern data platform, which is a lot of moving parts. And traditionally, this is something, or going from 2016 onwards, this has been an area where you have to really pick and match and choose the different objects from different vendors to be able to match and deliver this. And of course, into the mix, you also have data mesh coming in now, where which is a big hot buzzword, even though Gartner just claimed it was outdated. It's not what I see in the market. But typically where you want to have lots of different independent data teams, data squads that build data products for the business across domains, from the sources all the way out to the end user's consumption. And if you would build something like this, whether it be a data mesh or it is just a modern data platform in Azure, typically you wanted to use Data Factory to ingest and transform data. For big data transformations, you typically wanted to use Azure Databricks. Then you would store that data in a data lake storage, and then you could use SQL Data Warehouse to build your data warehousing solutions on top. And then you could add Azure ML or Power BI for reporting and data science workloads. What Microsoft then did, well, of course, introduce Synapse into this mix. And Synapse is trying to answer the whole, or combine together a whole different set of services into one single component, which means that you can do a lot more without having to mix and match different services. So Synapse is one name, but it is a whole bunch of services. You have your data factory, which is now then pipelines. Then you have Azure SQL serverless pools. You have your SQL data warehouse, which is now then the dedicated SQL pools, which is the massive parallel processing engine in Synapse. You have Azure Spark for your containerized Spark engine. You have Synapse Studio as your workbench, where both your analysts and your data engineers and your data scientists can work together, share notebooks across, query on all kinds of different data. And then it's still in preview. You have Data Explorer pools, which allows you to take your time series data and your IoT data and query that as well from the same single point of view in the studio. And you can then join both your data warehousing and your data lake and your time series data in one single pane of glass. Of course, you can also say that Azure ML is part of this, as well as Stream Analytics. Stream Analytics is the data streams, and Azure ML, well, partially, you can, of course, do data science just by writing your own Python code in Azure Spark, or you can go out into Azure ML Studio, which is looks a lot like Synapse Studio, develop your machine learning models, and then export them into Onyx files and import that into the SQL, dedicated SQL pools. And then you can execute your machine learning models within your SQL code in Synapse Studio. And Synapse, if you take a look at the Capgemini reference architecture, you can see that it ticks off the boxes on data ingestion, both batch and streaming. It can land the data by using Azure Storage into the raw layer and, of course, the universal data lake or data hub. You have data enrichment, data transformation, and data curation within Synapse itself. It also allows you to share data across in a business data hub. And you can use Synapse or API endpoints to expose data directly from Synapse. You have slight kind of a data science workbench and analytics orchestration, even though you probably want to shift that over to Azure ML. You have your data engine, you have several data engines. You have your virtual semantic layer and caching. You have data modeling inside Synapse SQL pools, and you can do aggregated facts as well. You can build your custom AI solutions, and all this again gives you a whole lot of capabilities inside this modern data landscape in one toolbox. Then you have Power BI. And Power BI, most of you probably know that already. It is the market-leading reporting and analytics tools with lots of different use cases. It is also a great tool if you just use Power BI Desktop for data profiling. It is a great tool for self-service BI and analytics. It covers modern reporting using paginated reports as well as dashboards. And it also does real-time reporting, so it functions as a sync from Stream Analytics, for instance. And of course, under the hood, you have the same tabular models that you have in SQL Server Analysis Services and Azure Analysis Services. So you have your semantic layer with caching of virtual data if you import, or you can do direct query. But it is that pure semantic layer with the endpoints that you connect to and reach APIs and so on. And this again allows us to connect into this same mix again You have your Power BI that can take over parts of the virtual semantic layer and the caching, the data modeling and aggregated facts from Synapse. And it also gives you the rich visualization, data exploration, and analytics and dashboard functionality that is needed. And of course, as well, the self-service BI reporting, BI and visualization that is more of the traditional data warehousing solutions. And then you have Microsoft Purview. And Microsoft Purview is a data governance tool. And even though it was branded as the data catalog of Azure, so it started off as Azure Data Catalog version 2, then it was branded as Azure Purview and launched with a data catalog, a data glossary, sorry, a business glossary, but now it has been rebranded because it is so much more. So you have your data catalog, which is based on open standards. So it's based on Apache Atlas, which means that you have a rich set of REST APIs that you can both use to call data objects from, as well as post. So you can shape and form the data objects in ways that, as long as it's supported by Apache Atlas, which means that it has a lot stronger support and you can do more with it than just the out-of-the-box Purview functionality. Purview can also map multi-cloud and on-prem environments. So you can scan S3 buckets in Amazon. You can connect to your SAP on-prem ERP systems. You can connect to SQL Server, Oracle on-prem as well. It has a business glossary, and business glossaries are important because it means that it allows your business to understand the common naming standards that are in the company. For instance, one company I was at struggled with business glossary because they had the same words for two different kind of KPIs. So they could have, there was a term called passenger mix for boats, for ferries, and passenger mix for the marketing department was just what kind of nationalities had they sold tickets to. So if they were Danes or Finnish or Estonian and German, the people that have been buying tickets to the boats. Whereas if you ask the captain wanted the passenger mix to be the number of different groups on board. So did they have how many families were on board, how many pensioners, how many students, how many truck drivers, because this was an important KPI for them to plan what kind of staff they needed. If there were lots of students and pensioners, they tend to buy a lot of tax-free and they tend to be in the bars and drink. So typically you want to staff up the restaurants, you want to staff up tax-free and the pubs. Whereas if you had lots of truck drivers on board, they typically just want somewhere to sleep. They don't buy anything because they have everything with them. So this is a very important KPI for the captains to plan. But of course, when you have two different functionalities or two different meanings for the same word, you can have a lot of problems when ordering and creating reports. So it's very important that you can have this common place to look up what things mean. And then, of course, you need to have some kind of governance around agreement on what on what wording to use when. It also means that you can document KPIs so that you can know that the sales report that contains the word for year over year means comparing sales data on today's date for the last 3 years or something. So again, document KPIs can be done by just writing it into the report, but you can also document these kind of things into business glossary. Data lineage is also important part of Purview, which means that you can scan and show how a number has been transported from the source systems all the way out to a report. And the lineage in Purview is a bit basic, though it can connect to lots of various sources. It typically just shows how a data factory pipeline has been running. I'll show you some demos afterwards of how things look here. Purview also has data security and data loss prevention. So it means that it can stop people from stealing data, just either by using endpoints. It can scan for typical attack vectors or typical tools that hackers use when they want to export data. And then they can block those connections from happening. It can also mean, and typically this is what a lot of people use it for, if you have a company sensitive or internal document, you don't want to have that document being shown outside of your secure devices. So you can say that either, for instance, a Power BI report that has been tagged sensitive is not allowed to be viewed if you're not using either a company or a corp enrolled laptop or a mobile phone that is not governed by Intune. Or you can say that you can view it, but you're not allowed to export the data underneath to run analysis in Excel, for instance. So both these kinds of data loss preventions are in place, which also means that it's harder to export and steal or for unfaithful servants to bring along sensitive data for competitors to use later on. Purview also has a privacy component, so you can have a lot of classification rules and terms and scan your data state and flag things that are, for instance, PII data in your data sets. So you can recognize credit card numbers, social security numbers from a whole bunch of different things out of the box. And again, this helps you be GDPR compliant because it allows you to have control, or at least a semblance of control, of what the kind of data that you have in your estate. It also has an access controls engine, which means that you can, inside Purview, define which AD groups are allowed to read a data set or to query a data set or to alter a data set. And that will then automatically transform over and give access in Synapse without you having to add manually on each and every different CSV file or Parquet file that data set is a part of, which can be a pain to do if you're not scripting it, but it's done automatically for you in Purview. And that can do Azure Storage as well as Azure SQL, and hopefully you'll get other engines in the Azure platform going forward, and also hopefully onto on-premise SQL Server 2022. Master data, however, is not part of Purview, but Microsoft did a partnership with Profici, which is a company that started by the people who made what's now SQL Server Master Data Services. And unlike SQL Server Master Data Services, is actually a proper master data management tool. So it comes out of the box, or you can order it, and it integrates very neatly into Purview. How about data quality? And data quality in this definition is not your typical data quality tools is done in an ETL pipeline where you define some rules and physically, or at least in the jobs, transform data so it adheres to the data quality standards. This is okay, but it doesn't allow you to let the owners of the data, which is business, know that they are doing things wrong. So it's better and more important to get the data quality job out of the hands of IT and into the hands of business. And this means that you need to give business reports on their systems that their data quality is so-so, and allow them to see what needs to be fixed, how they should fix it, and then give them reports afterwards telling them how well they've been doing or how badly they've been doing on fixing it. And data quality is not part of Purview, but it is on the wish list. So hopefully it's something that we can see in the future in Purview. It's something that the stronger catalogs in the line, such as Informatica Enterprise Data Catalog or Colibra, have as part of their tooling box as well. And this means, of course, that again, towards our data, towards this data platform reference architecture, we have filled all the different data specific boxes, but now we can start adding data discovery and lineage, data catalog, business glossary into this, data privacy. And of course, underneath, we have a lot of tighter integrations as well, because you have DevOps, you have the Azure platform with Azure Monitor, with Sentinel, with Defender for Cloud. All of these things are there, as well as Azure DevOps, even though Azure DevOps is DevOps and MLOps parts in Synapse is not as well integrated and functioning as well as I would like to see, but hopefully it comes better. Which means that all in all, the complete package of Azure Synapse, Power BI, and Purview, and on the Azure platform covers just about every single box on this huge, complete complex modern data platform landscape. And that is quite a strong play. However, and I think I need to change the way I'm sharing my screen for you, so you can see the landscapes I wanted to show you. Let's see now. And there we go. So the main focus here is, of course, yes, we have Power BI. Power BI has some lineage, it has some nice functionality, and a lot of people are coming into the data analytics play from Power BI point of view into the backend systems. You have your catalog as well, which means that you can scan, you can see your different data here. It scans pretty neatly in here. You can go in and see the different parts here. You can see here also it has schema classification, so it tells you that it has some zip codes and it has city names. Though that's schema classification is a bit unreliable, because I know at least one of these data assets had the date dimension in it, and it recognizes the month numbers as personal names. So November can be somebody's name, but it's September and August and January probably, or maybe some have, but it is a bit too sensitive. But you can fix them yourself as well. But the main part here is when you go into Synapse and you want to start looking, because you're an analyst and you want to see what you can find here. So you look for your data. And as soon as you go into the search engine in a Synapse Studio that has been connected to a Purview account, the search functionality is automatically selected as Purview. Okay, I can change and use Workspace instead, but it automatically selects Purview for you, which means that I can go in and see things for trip, for instance. And it will go through and check. This is the same if I go into catalog here and I search for trip. It is exactly the same results as I get here. So it means that you don't have to have your users first log into Purview and then start looking for data, and then afterwards go into Synapse to look for them. You can actually just do everything from one place. And let's see now if we have trip. This be it, I think, hopefully. And it basically opens up the Purview. I'll do the same thing here. It will show up the same data set here. So it gives you a view in. Hopefully, over time, you can then just you can just click here and start querying it. But for now, you have to go in, find your place, your warehouse, find your tables, and you have trip here, and you can then do select on this. And it will select for you. The one annoyance about this profiling, this is a basic profiling job, and the main annoyance for me right now in Purview is that Purview doesn't allow you to do data sampling from within here. You can see the properties of the data set when it was created, when it was modified, and so on. And it can also tell you if there are any related assets. This one wasn't. It will tell you the schema. So you have, again, geolocation, latitude, longitude tagged. So it will tell you there. You can see also here that it is connected to the glossary terms that I have created in the business glossary. And it will tell you things like your data types. But it doesn't allow me to profile. So I have to manually go over to my database and select to check what data is in there, which is, it slows down your profiling and discovery of data when you're an analyst. It makes too many hops, for my opinion. So hopefully they will add profiling later on, because profiling was basically one of the strongest features of Data Catalog version 1, and they removed that functioning, or the single feature that really I liked in Data Catalog version 1. But hopefully they will come back to that later. There wasn't any lineage on this one, but you can also see here that the different expert and owner of the data sets, and you can let's see if I can be out to connect. No, it doesn't allow me. For some reason on my tenant, because this is a demo tenant, I haven't got emails connected here, but on the production tenant, you will be able to here click on and get a mail to respond. So you can open up in Outlook and send a mail to the person that is the expert or the owner of the data set. And of course, since you can define in Purview the data sets, or who can access these data sets, another cool feature that has just been launched is the option of, say I am a data analyst and I want to get access to this trip data because I think it's important for me, but I'm new and I haven't been added to the Azure user group or the Azure AD user group yet. In Purview now, in preview, there is an authorization workflow, which means that I, as a user, can go in, find a data set, and apply for access to it. And it will drag me through a workflow and tag the people who are recognized or registered as approvers, and they can then automatically give or quickly give access, and then I immediately get access to that data set here. So it ties very neatly together. And of course, also if I go to data set, I can export the results to, oh no, let's see if I can find that. They've moved away where I can. Oh. Yes, for some reason I can't show you this now because I've forgotten where it is. But it's basically now these days you can also search, build a query inside Power BI, and then you can publish that data set so you can do it in Synapse and then publish that data set into Power BI. It is still a bit of a work in progress because you cannot do it directly. You have to first download the Power BI PBIX file, open it in desktop, and then publish it from Power BI desktop to Power BI, and then it's there. And then you can vice versa modify. Let's see if I have. I shouldn't have any Power BI workspaces connected here, but you can also then edit your data, your Power BI reports inside your Synapse workspace and see the changes coming in into your. I guess here you have it. You can edit your Power BI dataset or your Power BI reports. Let's see if I can find it. Oh no, okay, I haven't got access to it after the relaunch of my Power BI tenants. But you can basically edit and alter, so everything is integrated. So you can sit inside Synapse and see all the different components of the whole data platform inside the single workspace of Synapse. And as we go along, right now it's still a bit of a work in progress and things aren't perfect. But as you go along, this is a play that comes very nicely along, and it will offer lots of benefits for companies that want to have a single point of contact and a single point of workspace to share in this organization. So let's see. Right, I've come to the end of my session.